Hello, it is another month. It is December. So we're going to look at all the movies and TV shows that I've watched in the month of November, starting with Bojack Horseman Season 5. Again, I think this is a really solid season that goes for some really dark places. I feel like the voice acting really shines in this season as well, and it makes a lot of situations feel realistic and down to earth for a show about talking animals. All of the little subplots with the supporting characters feel just as engaging as Bojack's as well, and the twists and turns the show takes are very unpredictable and original. I haven't really mentioned how good the visual gags and the running gags in this show are. It just makes all of the characters even more unique and just shows how good the animation and attention to detail of the show really is. It's just a great season. I'd give it a 9. And then I watched My Hero Academia 2 Heroes. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting Weeb, but okay. Oh, there it is. I wanted to go back to this show after getting this film on Blu-ray because apparently I had to watch this film in between season 2 and 3. Overall, I think this was a fun standalone story with the class, but it just felt very forgettable to me. I don't feel like any of the characters had a development over the course of this film, really apart from All Might. You got some pretty good backstory. The new characters introduced weren't all that memorable as well, with one of them just serving the heroes to guide them to the top of a tower. I do think there's an improvement in animation in this film though compared to the first 2 seasons of the show, and the visuals when the fighting takes place does look very visually pleasing. I think it reaches a good conclusion as well, but I don't think this film was anything special. I give it a 6.5. And then I watched Weird, the Yankovic story. I was really intrigued by this film after seeing Daniel Radcliffe was playing Weird Al. I was also quite unfamiliar with Weird Al, as I don't think he's as popular in the UK as he is in the US, but I saw some of his celebrity parody interview videos a few years ago, and I've heard fat, I think. So I was really interested to see his story. And it turns out that 99% of this film did not actually happen in real life, which makes this film 10 times better in my opinion. This film is exactly what it says on the tin. It is very weird, but in an amazingly genius way in my opinion. I just love how it basically parodies all biopics in a really funny and clever way, and I think Daniel Radcliffe does a really great performance as Al, and all of the supporting roles, especially Evan Rachel Wood, who plays a very crazy Madonna, leading to one of the funniest endings I've probably seen in a film. There's some really good cameos from well-known actors or actors playing musicians to come from this film as well, and we get a really funny appearance from Weird Al himself, playing the head of a record label. In conclusion, I found this to be one of my favourite films of the year, basically. I'd give it a 9.5. And then I watched Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I'm not the biggest fan of the first film. I think the performances are great, especially from the late Chadwick Boseman, but the CGI became absolutely horrendous at the end, and the story I felt got a little bit convoluted. This film felt like one of the most emotional and well acted films of the MCU so far, I think, and it's probably in my top 3 for Phase 4, I'd say. I think the director Ryan Coogler did a really great job at adapting his script after the death of Chadwick instead of just straight up cancelling it. I feel like this film deals with death in a very unique and interesting way, and I find it interesting how they made one of the supporting characters from the last film the main character of this film. I think the acting was just top tier from most people as well, and the new people introduced Ironheart and Namor, who was just a really well written villain with some very understandable morals and a very tragic backstory. This film was maybe a bit too long, and there were some subplots especially the Martin Freeman one, which really doesn't need to be there, but overall this is a really great final film for Phase 4 in my opinion. I'd give it a 8. And then I finished Bojack Horseman with season 6. I felt like this final season was almost perfect, really. They wrap up everything and close everyone's characters perfectly in this season. Bojack going to rehab is obviously the focus of the season, and I think it's really satisfying seeing him change as a person before having his life completely destroyed by the person he was before. I think the penultimate episode of this show, The View from Halfway Down, is probably one of the most eerie and haunting episodes of television that I've watched. It's just very dark. It's amazingly written. It's emotional at points. It's shocking at points. It's scary at points. It's probably one of the best episodes of TV that I've seen. It's up there with Breaking Bad episodes in my opinion. And if you ended the show on this episode, it probably would be the most depressing ending you could possibly do for a show. But the show does go on to the finale, which gives us some really satisfying endings, some final conversations with Bojack and the supporting and characters. And in conclusion, this show is just phenomenal, and what felt like a Family Guy ripoff quickly turned into something much more. It's just a deeply realistic character study on a talking horse. I'd give this season a 10 out of 10. And then I finished watching My Hero Academia season 3. Overall, I thought this season was like the weakest out of the 3 I've seen, but there are some amazing moments in the season as well. I found like the whole forest fight thingy, like the first arc of the season, to be really intriguing, and like all of the new like villains introduced as well. I thought Deku's fight with the muscle guy was very well animated and probably one of the best moments in the season. And then I just felt like it went into a slump until the One for All episode, where All Might shows a lot of vulnerability and finally shows his true identity to the public. And then again, it went into a long slump, and it just became increasingly boring in my opinion, until the fight between Deku and Katchan, which I really liked. There's just a lot of new highs and new lows for this season, and I don't feel like many characters feel like they've been developed by the end of the season, maybe with the exception of All Might once again. I also absolutely despise that purple guy with the balls on his head. He really creeps me out. He's a proper creep. He like pervs on girls. I don't understand why he's a character in this show. And also the frog lady I find a bit annoying as well. Yeah, I want them both to die. I'll give this season a 7. And then I finished watching Dahmer Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer's. This is another one of those shows like Squid Game and Stranger Things that everyone will not just stop raving about. So I had to finally give it a watch. To be honest, I wasn't really that familiar with Jeffrey Dahmer before watching this show. I knew he did like absolutely terrible things, but I didn't know it was to the extent of what he actually did. I think this show does a really great job at doing like a deep dive into everything surrounding Jeffrey Dahmer, his whole backstory from like the day he was born, his whole like parents' backstory, what his neighbour was doing at the time, what his victims were doing before they were killed. It's a really detailed season of television. I think it did maybe start focusing on some aspects a little too much though, like Dahmer's neighbour. I feel like she had way more screen time than needed, and I do think the themes of like racism in the show are not dealt with the best. And there were like 2 comically racist police officers near the end. They were literally telling this guy to go back to his own country. That's how comically racist they were. Apart from those negatives, the show was really great for the most part, I think. Evan Peters does a really great job at this deranged serial killer, and I feel like the cinematography at points is really great and underappreciated. I'd give it an 8.5. And then I watched the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. I really enjoyed this Christmas special. I just found it to be very heartwarming and fun, with Drax and Mantis really acting as the main characters, which I wasn't expecting. The soundtrack for this special is phenomenal as well. It includes like my top 2 Christmas songs, which is Fairy Tale New York and Christmas Wrapping. I found Kevin Bacon to be really fun in this as well, and I like how he played like a major part in the story. I also like the animation used in like the flashback storytelling segments at the beginning and the end, and I feel like it just adds some really great emotion to everything, and it just ties up things really well. I really love this special. I think I might rewatch it like next Christmas probably. It's just a really heartwarming special. I'd give it an 8.5. James Gunn has done it again. And then I finished watching Andor finally. I love how this show builds on the world of Star Wars and expands on a lot of the lore, and I do like Andor as a character and the like adventurous character goes on, but I still found this show to be extremely boring in my opinion. I'm sorry. Oh my. It is just so dialogue based, with just a lot of these subplots about politics, and I just couldn't care less. When Cassian was captured and put in prison, I did gain some interest, and I really like Andy Serkis as an actor, and I think he did a really good job here. And then they escape prison, and I think it's one of the best Star Wars moments I've probably seen in a long time. The cinematography and acting and music just blends together so well. And then after they escape the prison, I just found it to be extremely boring again. Oh my god, bro. Oh hell. I think it's very well made. There's a lot of great performances, and it doesn't feel as nostalgia baity or awfully written as shows like Obi-Wan Kenobi or Book of Boba Fett. But I just found it to be the most boring Star Wars property I've had to sit through. I'm sorry. It is what it is. I'd give it a 6.5. And then the final thing I watched this month was A Christmas Story Christmas. I watched A Christmas Story back last year, and it grew to be one of my favourite Christmas films, to be honest. So when I heard a sequel was coming out with the original actor playing Ralphie, I really wanted to give it a watch. And overall, I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's as memorable or funny as the first film, but I think it's a really great legacy sequel that presents the Christmas season through adult adult Ralphie's eyes rather than child Ralphie's eyes, which I really like. There maybe isn't the best acting from some of the supporting characters, and things feel a little bit more cartoonish and unrealistic than the first, but overall I had a really good time with it, and I think I'd watch it again next Christmas along with the original. I am planning to watch the first film this month as well, by the way, hopefully on Christmas Day, because I do really want to rewatch that film again. But I give this film a solid 7.5. So those are all the movies and TV shows that I watched in the month of November. I haven't watched a lot of films. I need to watch more films, to be honest. I'm currently watching Benjamin Tennyson. This is just one of those highly rated children's shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender that I feel like I missed out on in my childhood. So I'm decided to watch some like select episodes of the show. I'm basing the episodes I watch off of IMDb scores mixed with a filler list that I found on Reddit, as I don't want to spend too much time on this show. But so far I find it to be a pretty fun, unique superhero show. I did find out, however, that Ben was voiced by a woman, so unfortunately I'm going to have to give this show a 0 out of 10. I'm also currently watching Arrested Development Season 1. I've heard this is supposed to be like one of the best comedy shows of all time, and has some really good actors in it, most notably Will Arnett, who very evidently plays a completely different role to Bojack in this, which is really fun to see. I think I'm just about like over halfway through the season so far, and I'm really enjoying it. And finally, I'm still watching Rick and Morty Season 6. Yes, this season is finally back with new episodes, but I've only seen the first one back by the time I'm recording this video. I really enjoyed it though. I feel like it delved a bit more into Jerry's character and gives us some really interesting character development from Rick, and I'm just really interested to see where the show goes from here. So there you have it. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you didn't, please leave a dislike, and I will see you in the next video.